The beginning of the 2023 NFL regular season is mere days away as the kickoff between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs looms upon us. I wanted to share my record predictions for every team as well as my playoff predictions before the season started. I'm sure many of them will turn out to be wrong, but I'd like to think this is finally the year most of them turn out to be true. Let me know what you think of these predictions in the comments below, and please share your predictions as well. Now let's get into these predictions, starting with the NFC. Starting with the NFC North, I predict the defending division champion Minnesota Vikings will go 8-9. I think their floor is 7-10 and their ceiling is 10-7. Their offense is poised to keep them competitive, but I'm concerned with how their defense will play and likely struggle over the season. There are three other reasons why the Vikings will likely regress. They went 11-1 in one-score games, 3 of their losses were blowouts, and they had a negative point differential of -3 last year. The Detroit Lions surprised everyone by finishing last season with a winning record. I'm buying into the offseason hype train for the Lions this year and predict them to go 10-7. I think their floor is 7-10 and their ceiling is 11-6. The Green Bay Packers are entering a new era. Jordan Love is finally taking over the reins from Aaron Rodgers. I predict them to go 5-12, but I think this is their floor, with their ceiling being 8-9. Love is the X factor for Green Bay this season. Their season is entirely dependent upon how he plays. The Chicago Bears are one of the worst teams last year, but have made moves to further support Justin Fields, such as trading for DJ Moore from Carolina and adding pieces to their offensive line. This could be a fun team to watch this year, and I predict they will go 7-10. I think their floor is 5-12 and their ceiling is 8-9. My NFC North standings predictions are the Lions in first place at 10-7, the Vikings in second place at 8-9, the Bears in third place at 7-10, and the Packers in fourth place at 5-12. I think the Week 18 matchup in Detroit between the Vikings and Lions will determine who wins the division. Moving on to the NFC South, I predict the defending division champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers will go 7-10. I think their floor is 5-12 and their ceiling is 8-9. I was initially skeptical of this team like most others seem to be, but I've grown to believe that they might be better than people expect them to be. The Carolina Panthers traded for the first overall pick in this year's draft to select quarterback Bryce Young after spending the past few seasons in quarterback purgatory, and also put together a respectable group of experienced coaches led by Frank Reich. I think they have the pieces to be a sneaky playoff contender, but I think there will be growing pains for this team and predict them to go 6-11. I think this is their floor, and their ceiling is 9-8. The New Orleans Saints made a big move at the quarterback position this offseason by signing Derek Carr to a multi-year contract. Carr comes in to replace Andy Dalton and the incumbent Jameis Winston, and I think this team has the pieces to be one of the better teams in the NFC, although I hesitate to fully trust their coaching staff. That being said, I predict them to go 11-6. I think their floor is 8-9 and their ceiling is 12-5. The Atlanta Falcons have been mediocre for a few seasons, but believe they have built a roster that can finally compete for the playoffs again. Desmond Ridder is the full-time starter and has pieces to be successful, including Atlanta's first-round pick Bijan Robinson. I predict they will go 6-11, but I think this is their floor, with their ceiling being 10-7. I think the Falcons can compete for their division this year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they were once again disappointed on the field. My NFC South standings predictions are the Saints in first place at 11-6, the Buccaneers in second place at 7-10, the Panthers in third place at 6-11, and the Falcons in fourth place at 6-11. This division should be somewhat better this year than it was last year, and certainly could be closer than my predictions suggest. Moving on to the NFC East, I predict the defending division champion and NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles will go 12-5. I think their floor is 10-7 and their ceiling is 13-4. They're poised to make another run at the Super Bowl if things do go well for them. The Dallas Cowboys faced some adversity last season, but still managed to finish with double-digit wins. They made multiple moves this offseason to improve their roster and seem to have a mostly balanced team. I predict they will go 13-4, and I think this is their ceiling, with their floor being 9-8. The New York Giants surprised everyone last season by having a winning record and making the playoffs. They improved their subpar roster this offseason, but I think they have a tough schedule this year. I predict them to go 8-9. I think their floor is 6-11 and their ceiling is 10-7. The Washington Commanders are fully on board with Sam Howell as QB1 after narrowly missing the playoffs last year. They've also finally rid themselves of the stink that was Dan Snyder. I was not high on this team for most of the offseason, but I've grown to believe that they will be among the better bad teams in the league this year. I predict they will go 6-11. I think their floor is 4-13 and their ceiling is 8-9. My NFC East standings predictions are the Cowboys in first place at 13-4, the Eagles in second place at 12-5, the Giants in third place at 8-9, and the Commanders in fourth place at 6-11. This division should be between the Cowboys and Eagles again, but I think Dallas will be able to edge out Philadelphia this year. Moving on to the NFC West, I predict the defending division champion and NFC runner-up San Francisco 49ers will go 10-7. I think their floor is 7-10 and their ceiling is 12-5. They have the pieces to make another deep playoff run, but I have questions about whether Purdy can actually be their long-term starter, as well as if the defense can sustain undergoing yet another coordinator change. The Seattle Seahawks had a solid season with Geno Smith leading their offense last year. I predict they'll go 10-7. I think their floor is 7-10 and their ceiling is 12-5. They will be better than they were last year and should compete for the division for most of the season. The Los Angeles Rams had a surprisingly disappointing season last year after winning the Super Bowl the season prior, including suffering too many injuries to overcome. Despite this, I think they'll have a similar season record-wise, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were a dark horse playoff contender. I predict they will go 5-12, but I think this is their floor, with their ceiling being 8-9. The general consensus is that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. They have a new coaching staff that is more concerned with fielding a roster rather than who is on that roster, and Kyler Murray is still recovering from his torn ACL suffered late last season. While they could surprise people and win a couple more games than expected, as the NFL is known for its parity and upsets, I predict they'll go 2-15, but I think this is their floor, with their ceiling being 4-13. I don't know when Kyler Murray is going to play this year, who should be their X factor, so it's hard to predict them being better than this. My NFC West standings predictions are the 49ers in first place at 10-7, the Seahawks in second place at 10-7, the Rams in third place at 5-12, and the Cardinals in fourth place at 2-15. The 49ers and Seahawks should be the top dogs in this division again, and I think both of them could make deep playoff runs. Moving on to the AFC, we'll start with the AFC North. I predict the defending division champion and AFC runner-up Cincinnati Bengals will go 12-5, which I think is their ceiling, with their floor being 9-8. The Baltimore Ravens have the potential to simultaneously be a top 10 offense and a bottom 10 defense this year. I predict them to go 9-8. I think their floor is 8-9, while their ceiling is 11-6. The Pittsburgh Steelers have still never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin's leadership, and I think that streak continues this year. I predict they will go 10-7. I think their floor is 8-9, while their ceiling is 12-5. The Cleveland Browns believe they have a playoff caliber team. I predict they will go 10-7. I think their floor is 6-11, while their ceiling is 11-6. How this season shakes out for Cleveland is dependent on how Deshaun Watson and their defense plays. There could be coaching changes if things go awry this season. My AFC North standings predictions are the Bengals in first place at 12-5, Steelers in second place at 10-7, the Browns in third place at 10-7, and the Ravens in fourth place at 9-8. This may be the best division in the NFL this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams won it. Moving on to the AFC South, I predict the surprising division champion Jaguars to defend their crown and go 10-7. I think their floor is 7-10, while their ceiling is 11-6. I'm skeptical to have positive expectations for the Jaguars, but am rooting for them nonetheless. The Tennessee Titans seem to be a shell of the double-digit win teams they were just a couple seasons ago. I predict they will go 7-10. I think their floor is 6-11, while their ceiling is 9-8. The Indianapolis Colts have a new head coach in Shane Steichen and a new quarterback, rookie Anthony Richardson, who they believe will lead them out of their quarterback purgatory they've been stuck in since 2019. I think there will be growing pains for the team and predict they will go 6-11. I think their floor is 4-13, while their ceiling is 8-9. The Houston Texans have been one of the worst teams in the league for the past few seasons and have fired their head coach in back-to-back years. They hope newly hired DeMeco Ryans is the man who will right the ship for them, and their rookie quarterback CJ Stroud is the quarterback who will lead them back to winning. I predict they will go 5-12. I think their floor is 4-13, while their ceiling is 7-10. My AFC South standings predictions are the Jaguars in first place at 10-7, the Titans in second place at 7-10, the Colts in third place at 6-11, and the Texans in fourth place at 5-12. I don't have many positive expectations for this division this year, but I wouldn't mind something happening to avert this. Moving on to the AFC East, I predict the 3 straight division champion Buffalo Bills to go 12-5, which I think is their ceiling, with their floor being 10-7. I have some questions about this team, but I don't doubt that they should still be among the top teams in the AFC. The Miami Dolphins finally made the playoffs last season after incurring multiple winning seasons without an appearance, although they were hampered by multiple head injuries to quarterback Tua Tagovailoa throughout the season. Tua has taken precautions this offseason to hopefully protect himself better, and the roster has added pieces to an already good group. I predict they will go 11-6. I think their floor is 9-8 and their ceiling is 12-5. The New England Patriots narrowly missed the playoffs last year despite having a below-average offense and incurring only their second losing season since 2002. They've taken steps to improve it this year and still have a good defense, but I predict they will go 8-9 again. I think their floor is 6-11 and their ceiling is 9-8. The New York Jets were likely a decent quarterback away from making the playoffs last year. Cue the trade for Aaron Rodgers, who played better than all of the Jets quarterbacks combined last year. This team has high expectations from themselves and fans alike, so the question is whether they can meet these expectations or if they will collapse under them. I predict they will go 11-6. I think their floor is 8-9 and their ceiling is 12-5. My AFC East standings predictions are the Bills in first place at 12-5, the Jets in second place at 11-6, the Dolphins in third place at 11-6, and the Patriots in fourth place at 8-9. This should be one of the best divisions in the league this year. You could make a case for most every team to win it. I think the Week 18 matchup in Miami between the Bills and Dolphins will determine who wins the division. Moving on to the AFC West, I predict the defending division champion and Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs will go 12-5. I think their floor is 10-7 and their ceiling is 13-4. I've doubted the Chiefs for multiple years now, yet they always showed how foolish I was to do so I refuse to not accept that they'll remain among the top of the class of the AFC. The Los Angeles Chargers made the playoffs last year but were eliminated in their only game after giving up the third largest blown lead in NFL postseason history to the Jaguars. I predict they will go 9-8. I think their floor is 7-10 and their ceiling is 11-6. The Las Vegas Raiders had playoff expectations last year that came crashing down due to their head coach being Josh McDaniels. He's managed to stick around, and he made a lateral move at quarterback by replacing longtime starter Derek Carr with Jimmy Garoppolo. I predict they will go 5-12. I think their floor is 4-13 and their ceiling is 7-10. The Denver Broncos were undoubtedly the most disappointing team last season. Despite trading for Russell Wilson to try and finally solve their quarterback purgatory problems, they led one of the lowest scoring offenses last year despite having a solid defense, which ultimately led to the firing of first-time head coach Nathaniel Hackett and trading for retired Sean Payton from New Orleans. I've been one of the many foolish ones who predicts Denver to have a winning record every year, and I hesitantly predict they will go 9-8. I think their floor is 5-12 and their ceiling is 10-7. My AFC West standings predictions are the Chiefs in first place at 12-5, the Chargers in second place at 9-8, the Broncos in third place at 9-8, and the Raiders in fourth place at 5-12. The Chiefs own this division, and it's foolish to pick against them until someone else rips away the crown from them. Now that I've shared my record predictions, here are my playoff predictions. In the NFC, I have the Cowboys as the 1 seed, the Saints as the 2 seed, the Lions as the 3rd seed, the 49ers as the 4th seed, the Eagles as the 5th seed, the Seahawks as the 6th seed, and the Vikings edging out the Giants as the 7th seed. In the AFC, I have the Bills as the 1 seed, despite a 3-way tie, the Chiefs as the 2 seed, the Bengals as the 3rd seed, the Jaguars as the 4th seed, the Jets as the 5th seed, the Dolphins as the 6th seed, and the Steelers edging out the Browns as the 7th seed. My Super Wildcard Weekend matchup predictions are as follows: the Vikings versus Saints, the Seahawks versus Lions, and the Eagles versus 49ers in the NFC, and the Steelers versus Chiefs, Dolphins versus Bengals, and Jets versus Jaguars in the AFC. I have the Saints, Seahawks, Eagles, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Jets winning to advance. My divisional round matchup predictions are as follows: the Seahawks versus Cowboys and Eagles versus Saints in the NFC, and the Dolphins versus Bills and Jets versus Chiefs in the AFC. I have the Eagles, Dolphins, and Jets, and surprisingly the Cowboys winning to advance. My conference championship matchup predictions are not quite what I thought they would be, with division rivalries in both the Dolphins versus Jets and the Eagles versus Cowboys. I have the Dolphins and Eagles winning their respective conferences and advancing to Super Bowl 58. My Super Bowl 58 matchup prediction is the Philadelphia Eagles versus Miami Dolphins in Sin City. 2 highly potent offenses and 2 solid defenses. I have the Eagles taking control and righting the shortcoming of last year to claim the Lombardi Trophy this year. I'm very excited for the start of a new NFL season, as well as to share my predictions for it as well. I look forward to seeing how the season plays out and looking back at how wrong, or hopefully right, most of them were. Please share your season predictions in the comments so we can compare them. Thank you very much for watching the video. Please like it if you enjoyed it. I had fun making it, and I hope you look forward to more videos in the future about the NFL as well as about various pop culture. Thanks again, and I hope you're doing your best out there.